I'm going to demonstrate to you how to do a value scale. This is going to have 4 squares of different value. The first thing I want to do is make sure that I mark where the top of my page is. I'm going to draw a line up over the top of the ruler, making sure you got your fingers spread far out. Then you want to make sure that you mark the top for when you turn your paper. You'll only ever use this as the top and this is the top. The other side you won't, because of the fact that paper is never cut exactly square and your angles and your lines will be off. You need to go ahead and mark. You start from where the 0, the line is right here. That's where you start measuring from, not the end of the ruler, okay? So make a little tick mark, come over, always going over the top of the ruler, make another little tick mark where the 1 is, a tick mark where the 2 is, tick where the 3 is, 4, 5. These are going to be 1-inch squares, okay? Now, once again, that's the top, and this is the top. The only 2 ways to turn it, I need to make another line 1 inch over. Notice I put the first straight line where that line is where I start measuring from, where the 0 is, not the edge of the ruler. Spread your fingers out, make a little tick mark where the 1 is over the top of the ruler. You want to make 3 tick marks when you're doing a longer line. We can make sure that you are don't have something that you've not measured right and that it all lines up. Okay, so I've got the 3 lines. I'm going to come back, I turn, my paper's got the X mark at the top, line up these 3 little tick marks, fingers spread open, make sure, check again that I haven't moved it, and then once again I'm going to draw with a pencil. Now, if I needed more space than this, if these lines needed to be longer, I would probably make 3 tick marks here to make sure I got it straight. Since it's such a short distance, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to make sure that I do have my 5 squares for my value scale. Okay, so now we're going to go from darkest to lightest. I'm going to call this 1, and I'm going to call this 5. You could do it the exact opposite. The main thing is that when you're doing this value scale, you're going to make your darkest one first. Your lightest one, you're going to leave it white. The next one that you would do, the second one that you're going to shade, and remember this is going to be blended shading. If you shade, you want to make sure that as much of the material of the pencil as possible is touching the paper. So when you pick up the pencil, if you lay it down, pick it up, basically the underneath of your palm and the pencil's underneath your palm, your finger on top of the pencil, and you should be able to get a wider line. If I just go back and forth like this, this is hatching just like that is hatching with the edge of the pencil, okay? What we're going to be doing is blended, which means we're going to go around in little circles and back over the top and more until we get it all the same. but they also are random circles. They're not done in a pattern. If you do them in a pattern, you'll see them in a pattern. Just like if you do hatching, you'll see lines. This paper has a certain amount of tooth in it, so therefore you see the little spots because it's a little bit rougher paper. If I had a smoother paper, I would not have those spots there. Now I could use a Q-tip or something. This is a blending stump, and with a blending stump I also do it around with the circles. You could use a tissue, okay, to smooth things out. That part's up to you. So, once again, you want to make sure that you have as much lead as possible or graphite out from the pencil. So you probably have to sharpen your pencil several times. When you sharpen your pencil, remember, don't push real hard into your pencil sharpener. Turn slowly where you don't start breaking your lead off. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and start with this one. A lot of times I pick my pencil up like this. It kind of changes, but the main thing is you don't want to go like you're writing, because you want as much as possible to touch your paper. And every now and then you might go back and forth a little bit where you're trying to get corners and lines, because you need to be extremely neat with this. Okay, now you don't have to worry about, you're not trying to do a grid, you're not trying to draw, make sure you have those straight lines that you're starting with, so you can turn your paper any way you need to be able to comfortably shade in. Okay, and so sometimes it's easier, just like in painting, to get your edges first. You also might want to have something, a piece of paper, something under your hand. You could also have a piece of paper where you don't go over into the next block. That will be lighter. My pencil just went up underneath it just a little bit. But I've got to get it as dark as possible. Now, with this regular number 2 pencil, I'm not gonna get it black, but I should be able to get it fairly dark. And so the more I go over it, I'm starting to use more and more pressure. And then if I did go outside of those lines any, I'm going to come back in the end and clean that up. It also need to make sure it's actually the same value all the way across that square. The same value, not a change in value within the square itself. And you'll notice when you're using a graphite pencil and doing a value scale that it does end up becoming shiny. So this is a value finder that you can buy. It's used pretty much the same way as we're going to use ours, but you'll notice that my darkest dark is not going to be as dark as theirs. Now, if I had drawing pencils I were using, I could get it much darker than this. And I have erasers that I can use. You always want to make sure that you test your eraser somewhere else and that it's clean, where you don't get smudges where you're trying to work. Your value scale for this particular assignment should be extremely well crafted. It should be that lines are really straight lines, that you're extremely neat. Okay. Now, you don't want to smudge across your paper when you're trying to get rid of those little pieces of eraser. And if your desk were to have marks and things in it, you need to make sure your desk is clean. You need to make sure that you may need to make sure and have other paper up underneath the paper that you're using to do your value scale. Okay, for the minute, I'm going to leave that one and I'm going to go to the second one I'm going to do. Remember I said that I'm going to have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is going to be left white. And the paper is white. Okay. The medium is going to be here. Okay. The medium one is going to be here.